The night sky over Gaza City lit up once again. Flashes, smoke, and the unmistakable roar of jet engines slicing through the darkness. At 1952 UTC, on 28 October 2025, the fragile calm that had barely held for days was ripped apart. Windows shattered, families ducked for cover, and that dreadful orange glow returned to the skyline. The ceasefire, already hanging by a thread, lasted just long enough for people to believe in it again. Then, in seconds, it was gone. Witnesses described the sound as the old sound, the one they hoped never to hear again. A deep, rolling thunder overhead, followed by concussive booms that rippled through the city. Streets once full of quiet conversation turned into avenues of panic and sirens. This was no accident of war. It was a deliberate, calibrated message fired from above. A message that once again puts Gaza, Israel, and the entire Middle East back on the knife's edge between fragile truce and open war. For weeks, regional mediators, led by Egypt and Qatar, with heavy diplomatic lifting from the United Nations, had been trying to hold together what they called a rolling ceasefire. The idea was simple: pause the fighting long enough to release hostages, allow aid deliveries, and open a path toward a more permanent truce. But simple is not a word that exists in Gaza. Both sides viewed the deal through different lenses. To Israel, the truce was conditional. Any attack, rocket, or provocation would void it. To Hamas, the pause was an opportunity to regroup, resupply, and gain leverage in the next negotiation round. The fuse was lit earlier that day when reports surfaced of rocket fire towards southern Israel, allegedly launched from within Gaza's borders. Israeli intelligence later accused Hamas of orchestrating the attack under cover of the truce, while Hamas denied it outright. Another spark followed. Israel claimed that Hamas handed over the remains of an Israeli hostage that did not belong to the person promised in the ceasefire exchange. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a violation of every agreement, a deception of our people. Within hours, the order was signed. The IDF would launch a targeted strike on militant command nodes and rocket launch infrastructure. For Gaza's civilians, it didn't matter what triggered it. They just knew the lights flickered and then the sky fell. Shortly after 1950 UTC, Israeli F-16-1 Sufa jets roared in from the Mediterranean, followed by the hum of Hermes 900 drones circling high above. Within minutes, precision munitions rained down on southern and eastern Gaza City, striking the Shuja'iyya, Zeitoun, and Tal al-Hawa districts. The IDF described the strikes as surgical, but in Gaza, no strike feels that way. According to Palestinian Civil Defense officials, between 7 and 9 people were killed, with dozens more injured, most of them civilians caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Rescue workers clawed through collapsed concrete with bare hands, their flashlights flickering through clouds of dust. Verified footage posted to geo-confirmed and OSINT channels shows towering plumes of fire, followed by a rolling wall of debris. The explosions illuminated the skyline, each blast briefly turning night into day. One clip showed a medic shouting for silence so he could hear voices beneath the rubble. Another captured a child being pulled from the remains of a collapsed apartment block, her face streaked with dust and blood, clutching a stuffed toy. It's a scene Gaza has lived through too many times, each one blending into the last. Military analysts believe Israel used a familiar combination of platforms and munitions. The F-16 Isufa, Israel's workhorse multi-role fighter, likely carried GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, precision weapons designed for dense urban environments, able to penetrate concrete with minimal blast radius. Supporting assets included Hermes 900 and Hermes 450 drones, providing live imagery, and possibly F-35 Ayadir stealth fighters on Overwatch, mapping targets with synthetic aperture radar. The IDF spokesperson's unit later said, the strikes targeted operational centers and rocket launch positions used by terrorist organizations to attack Israeli civilians. The Israel Defense Forces will continue to act wherever threats emerge. On social media, Israelis in border towns reported hearing distant booms from Gaza, while Gaza residents posted frantic messages. It's happening again. In Shuja'iyya, a strike hit what the IDF claimed was a Hamas command post embedded in a residential block. In Zeitoun, another blast flattened a suspected rocket storage site. By midnight, fires were still burning, and local hospitals, already overwhelmed, were flooded with casualties. It wasn't the largest bombardment of the war, but its timing, during ceasefire negotiations, made it one of the most politically explosive. To understand these strikes, you have to understand leverage. Israel's calculus is built on deterrence, the idea that overwhelming retaliation discourages future attacks. But deterrence isn't just about destroying targets, it's about controlling the rhythm of escalation. By striking during talks, Israel signals it won't be cornered by diplomacy. For Hamas, every Israeli strike becomes propaganda, proof in its narrative that Israel never negotiates in good faith. Both sides weaponize the same explosion differently. Israel sees it as enforcement. Hamas calls it defiance. This is the paradox of the Gaza conflict. Every action meant to enforce peace risks igniting another round of war. Ceasefire collapses are rarely instant. They erode. Trust dissolves first, then communication lines, then the humanitarian corridors. Within hours, mediators are left with two angry parties and a pile of shattered agreements. Egyptian and Qatari officials reportedly worked through the night, trying to salvage what was left of the framework. But once airstrikes begin, negotiation tables turn into post-mortems. As one Egyptian diplomat reportedly told Reuters, "You cannot build peace in the same hour that the bombs are falling." Every blast in Gaza sends shockwaves far beyond its borders. Cairo fears another collapse will trigger a mass exodus toward the Sinai. Amman worries about renewed unrest spilling into the West Bank. Doha, once again caught between mediator and sponsor, scrambles to hold both sides back from the edge. The European Union issued an urgent statement calling the strikes deeply concerning and warning that continued violations risk total breakdown of the truce. The United Nations echoed that sentiment, urging immediate restraint from all parties. But words travel slower than missiles. In Tehran, Iranian officials condemned the strikes, and pro-Iran militias in Syria and Lebanon reportedly went on heightened alert. On social media, Hezbollah-linked accounts vowed solidarity operations if attacks continue. For Israel's military planners, this is the nightmare scenario. Not just Gaza on fire, but multiple fronts reigniting. The northern border, the West Bank, the Red Sea shipping lanes, all potential flashpoints. Tonight's airstrikes may have been measured, but geopolitically, they're dynamite. Israel's air campaign demonstrates how modern warfare has become as much about data as destruction. Every bomb that drops over Gaza begins its journey inside a computer, a target flagged by aerial reconnaissance, satellite imagery, or intercepted communications. The IDF's C4I Directorate, Command, Control, Communications, Computers, and Intelligence, fuses that information into digital targeting packages, often minutes before launch. The F-16I Sufa, derived from the US F-16 Block 52, integrates Israeli-made avionics, terrain mapping radar, and helmet-mounted displays. Pilots can lock onto targets simply by looking at them through the canopy. The Hermes 900 drone, meanwhile, can loiter for over 30 hours, streaming full-motion video directly to command centers near Tel Aviv. These drones don't just guide strikes, they record them, frame by frame, for later analysis, or, when needed, to counter international criticism. The weapons themselves are equally high-tech. The GBU-39 SDB weighs only 250 pounds, but can punch through reinforced concrete and strike within a meter of its GPS coordinates. The JDAM converts standard bombs into precision instruments, guided by satellite and inertial systems. A modern paradox, a bomb designed to be more ethical. For comparison, Hamas's arsenal remains crude. Unguided rockets, improvised drones, smuggled mortars, effective for terror but not precision. Gaza's air defense capability is effectively zero. It has no radar grid, no interceptor systems, no warning sirens beyond local observation posts. In short, Israel controls the sky, and in Gaza, whoever owns the sky owns the night. After every strike comes a second battle, the fight over narrative. Within minutes of the explosions, Israeli social media channels released grainy infrared footage, claiming to show militants loading rockets before being hit. Hamas's media wing countered with videos of destroyed homes and wounded civilians. Both sides flood the information space, shaping how the world perceives the war. But on the ground, humanitarian workers don't see politics, only injuries. Hospitals report shortages of fuel for generators, blood supplies running low, and exhausted medics who haven't slept in days. UN agencies warn that if the truce collapses completely, aid convoys will halt again, pushing Gaza's humanitarian crisis into catastrophe. For civilians, it's not about strategy or sovereignty, it's about survival. As one doctor at Al-Shifa Hospital told reporters, "Every time we rebuild, it comes down again. Every time they say ceasefire, we count the hours until the next strike." While Gaza burns, political fires rage in Jerusalem. Prime Minister Netanyahu, under immense domestic pressure, faces a divided cabinet. Hardliners demand harsher measures, arguing that any restraint emboldens Hamas. Moderates warn that every strike undermines Israel's international standing and deepens its isolation. Public opinion is split. Some Israelis, weary from years of rocket alerts, see the strikes as necessary self-defense. Others question whether endless bombardments truly make Israel safer. The Israeli military establishment, meanwhile, continues balancing deterrence with diplomacy. The IDF's senior leadership knows that strategic restraint can be as powerful as air power, but convincing politicians of that is another story. In this environment, airstrikes become both military and political theater. Each explosion resonates not just in Gaza's ruins, but in Israel's polling numbers. Across the Atlantic, Washington walks a diplomatic tightrope. The US administration has publicly supported Israel's right to self-defense, but quietly urges restraint. American envoys are reportedly working behind the scenes with Cairo and Doha to patch the truce back together. European capitals are less patient. Berlin, Paris, and Madrid all expressed alarm, citing fears of a total humanitarian collapse. The EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, warned that continued escalation will jeopardize all mediation efforts and risk igniting a broader regional confrontation. In the UN Security Council, emergency consultations were called overnight. Diplomats traded familiar lines, Israel citing defense, Palestine citing aggression. Russia and China condemned the strikes outright. The US blocked calls for a formal resolution, insisting on space for direct negotiation. Once again, the international community finds itself doing what it always does, trying to manage the unmanageable. The 2025 ceasefire had been more than just a pause. It was a test case for whether Israel and Hamas could coexist in a managed deterrence model. That model now lies in ruins. If the truce collapses, the likely trajectory is clear. Hamas resumes rocket fire, Israel launches broader operations, the humanitarian situation deteriorates, and mediators scramble to reinvent the same deal under a different name. For the people living beneath this cycle, peace feels like a rumor that never materializes. Every child in Gaza City can distinguish the sound of an F-16 from a drone. Every family in southern Israel knows how long it takes to reach a bomb shelter after a rocket siren. On both sides, fear has become routine. That is the tragedy of this conflict, its predictability. Everyone knows how it begins, no one knows how to end it. Militarily, Israel's campaign demonstrates its doctrine of deterrence through dominance. The IDF's capacity to hit targets anywhere in Gaza at any moment underscores its technological edge. But the strategic question remains: can airstrikes achieve lasting security? History says no. From Operation Cast Lead in 2008 to Protective Edge, Guardian of the Walls, and beyond, Israel's short-term victories have often yielded long-term instability. Hamas adapts, tunnels deeper, rebuilds faster. Each round ends where it began, with both sides claiming success and civilians paying the price. Unless political solutions replace military reflexes, the next explosion is already scheduled. The only unknown is the date. And so, the night of 28th October 2025 will join a long ledger of nights like it. Nights when the world held its breath, when fragile diplomacy collided with hard reality. Each explosion echoes beyond Gaza, across negotiating tables, across borders, across a region trying to remember what peace even sounds like. The ceasefire that once offered a sliver of hope now flickers like a candle in the wind. Mediators will meet again, statements will be drafted, promises will be repeated. But for the people under those skies, talk means little when the earth shakes beneath them. As the smoke settles over Gaza City, one truth remains unshaken. The Middle East is still a battlefield of perception as much as power. Israel's message tonight was strength. Hamas's answer will be defiance. And the civilians, once again, are left between both. The question is not whether this ceasefire will survive. It's whether anyone still believes in the idea of peace at all. Because in Gaza, when the night sky lights up, the world looks away until it happens again.